From the headquarters of the Guild of Champions, this is the Chris Terrell Podcast, and I am your host, Chris Terrell, and welcome to another week of your weight loss quest. How did this last week go for you, champion? What new challenges did you encounter? But more importantly, what failure did you go through, and what lesson did you get from that failure? Come on now, don't let a perfectly good failure go by without you getting your lesson. That's your reward for your troubles. Now, if you're new here, I've lost 125 pounds myself after an entire adulthood of chronic yo-yo dieting. Up, down again. Before I finally got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I made some permanent, meaningful, and actual changes to my real-life lifestyle, habits, routines, environment, community, and to my systems of belief. Because it's all of those things that create me, and it's all of those things that create you too. And if you want to get meaningful results that last, you're going to have to go all the way to the source and change all 6 of those things. And now I'm here each week to help you get similar results in your life, the body and life of your dreams. I've been doing this now for a few years. The podcast is crossing some fun thresholds. I'm about to hit 200 episodes. What? 200 episodes of helping people lose weight in a slow, very slow, but sustainable way. The podcast has crossed 750,000 downloads. Over 750,000 downloads of this podcast. That just blows my mind that has happened. So thank you so much to everybody that's listened to the podcast, everybody that's shared the podcast. Thank you. It has changed my life. It has brought so much help and hope for others as well. And I'm just so grateful for all of you that have shared it. Now, hey, another big milestone. I'm about to hit 500 ratings on Apple Podcasts, which is a lot of work to get to. And so, hey, I would love to invite you. If you have not left a review, if you're an Apple Podcast listener, please consider giving the podcast a review. Now, as much as I'd like to get it, I want to be sure I earn it first. So give me a couple episodes. Let me earn that 5-star review. But if you believe I've earned it, please go ahead and give me that review. I would be greatly appreciative of that. And, changing the 6 things I mentioned earlier, your lifestyle, habits, routines, environment, community, belief systems, it is a really hard thing to do. Like, it's a really challenging thing to do. Why? Because you have to dig into your own mind. You have to get to know your own thoughts. You have to get to know your own patterns. You have to really be present with yourself and watch yourself. And one of the things that I have found is so tremendously helpful for me with doing that is having a journal. It could be a book journal, but it could also be a video journal. I used a video journal for a good portion of my weight loss journey before I use paper more now than I do journaling. But the whole point is I want you to get your thoughts and I want you to interact with them. I want you to look at them, perceive them, and to decide, how do you want to think? Because if you can do that, you're going to get different results in your life. And, Albert Einstein has one of my favorite quotes is, you cannot solve your problems with the same thinking you used when you created the problem. Right? So if you want to solve your problems, you're going to need new thinking. And one of the best ways to get new thinking is to do some journaling. Now, I know journaling can be kind of intimidating for some people. Some of you don't know what to do. You've maybe never done it before. So I have written a journaling guide. It's totally free. Would love to have you download that guide. There's a link to it in the show notes of the podcast, or you can head on over to christerrellcoaching.com. I'll have a link to it there. Or you can go to theguildofchampions.com and click the free resources button, and I will have a download for it there. So I've got several places. I would love to get this journaling guide in your hands so that you could get to the process of studying yourself on paper. If you can learn to study yourself on paper, your future will change. I mean it. I promise your future is going to change if you do that. So this week on the podcast, what I wanted to do is I wanted to answer some questions here that I recently answered in my on-ramp program. So if you've been thinking about joining the Guild, when you first join it, I'm going to take you through an on-ramp program where I'm just going to get you up to speed so that you're on the highway of success, so to speak. You're not there. You just went from not moving to now you're moving at highway speeds. It's a really important program. I have been creating this program and iterating it for the last 3 years. So it has just gotten so much better. And every single time I do it, I make it even better. So if you join the Guild here when the doors open shortly, I'll tell you more about that later. You'll be able to go through that on-ramp program. I personally take you through it, and it's just with you and the people that are joining with you at that time. So it's a small, more intimate setting, and it gives you a lot of chance to answer questions. But I also do written questions. I take them and I answer them throughout the program. And I wanted to read some of the questions that I answered and provide the answer here on the podcast, because I think these would be important for you to hear. I think it'll help you, but also I want to give you a taste of the sort of information and answers you're going to get in this program. This is just but a sampling. You can't see this unless you're on video, but this is the workbook. I mean, I give you it's a pretty massive workbook that we take you through. But we do a lot of FAQ in it. So let me get to this first one. How do I commit to being patient? It seems like something I don't control. How do I commit to being patient? It seems like something I don't control. Patience isn't something you either have or don't have. Patience is a skill. It's not an innate ability you come out of the womb with. And you develop this skill through practice. I want you to think of patience like building a muscle. You don't control how strong you are right now. Like your results now are the way that they are. But you do control whether you're going to train that muscle. You do control if you're going to train that muscle consistently. And the same applies to patience. So to commit to being patient, you have to shift your focus from the feeling of patience, away from that, and instead shift it towards the actions that will lead to patience. So let me say that again. You don't need to feel patient to act patiently. You commit to the process of being a patient, not the emotion. So truly, patience is determined by your actions, by what you do, not by your internal state. So one thing that will help is to redefine or to clarify what the word patience means within your mind. So patience is not, at least according to my definition of it, it is not passive waiting. Patience is the ability to stay focused on your long-term goal while managing the discomfort of not having results right away, right? Like, I want the results now. I want them now. But you're remaining focused on the long-term goal. It's you saying this to yourself, I'm choosing to keep going. I'm choosing to keep going, even though I feel frustrated, even though I feel overwhelmed. That is going to be patience. Now, I teach all my clients to go after the core 4 goals, which is thin, healthy, happy, in shape. And it's important to know what your goals are for reasons that we're not going to get into right now. But the goal essentially gives you a sense of direction, which is really important to have. And so when you're feeling impatient, you can ask yourself if you are taking action that is taking you towards one of your goals. You could also ask yourself, is quitting going to take me closer to one of these? Often for many people, quitting comes after an intense feeling of impatience. And so remember that impatience is just a feeling. Impatience doesn't deserve to dictate your actions. It's just a feeling. And impatience often shows up when we're obsessing over the scale. So shift your attention. Shift your attention away from things you cannot control, like the scale, and shift it towards the things that you can control, like your habits, your routines, and your daily actions. Those you have control over. For example, did you hit your calorie target today? Are you going to do that? You control that. Did you get your steps in? You by and large can control that. Did you track your food? If you're doing it, that's progress. So when you're feeling impatient, you're going to be tempted to react impulsively. Don't do that. Don't make a decision from a place of impatience, from impulsivity. Become practice at sleeping on your decisions overnight. Give yourself a chance to pause, to breathe, and then just let the feeling sort of wash over you. Don't give in, and just make a decision when you've calmed down. So if you're feeling this impatient, overwhelming feeling and you're wanting to pivot or change directions, just tell yourself, okay, I want to feel this way. I'm going to write it down on this piece of paper so I don't forget it. And tomorrow, if I still feel this way, I'm going to come back and look at it. If I still feel this way, then I can change my mind. If I still feel this way, then I can change my mind. All right, so that's one of the things that will help you with patience. And that was to answer the question that somebody asked of how do I commit to being patient? Because it seems like something I don't control. Let's talk about another question that I answered in this last program that we did, which is, what if I don't know the calories exactly of what I'm eating? What do I do if I have some food and I'm about to eat and I don't exactly know the calories? And of course I might have this mentality of wanting to be perfect, but here's the thing. It is completely okay to want to get accurate information. It is totally okay to be like, it's really important to me that I capture accurate information, but don't make that the main pursuit. Don't make perfection the main pursuit. If that is the main pursuit, you're setting yourself for discouragement, which is just premeditated disappointments. Instead, I want you to chase consistency. Don't chase perfection. Chase consistency. The goal is not to hit an exact calorie number every time, because honestly, even if you tried to do that, you'd never be perfectly accurate. Not unless you have your own lab equipment. All right? I don't know if you know this, but nutrition labels can be wrong by up to 20%. Like, that's normal. And there's lots of imperfections in this. It is by no means a precise way of determining the calories. You are ballparking at best. Yes, you can do better than worse at that. But so what this means is estimating, not only is it acceptable, it's actually a part of the process. Like, you're supposed to estimate calories. Like, you're supposed to find yourself in a place where you're estimating. I want you to think of calorie tracking like you're driving a car. So when you're driving, your goal is to stay in your lane. That's your goal, stay in your lane. But do you keep that steering wheel perfectly still, never letting it move, rigid? Maybe you screw it, you wouldn't screw it into place, even if it was a perfectly straight road. Why? No, you're going to have to make constant little teeny tiny adjustments and corrections. Sometimes drifting to a little bit to the left, so let me turn the wheel to the right. Sometimes you're drifting a little bit to the right, let me turn the wheel to the left. The point is not to drive in a perfectly straight line, even though you might think it is. It's actually to stay within the boundaries by just steering yourself between them. And as the boundaries curve, you curve with it. So embrace consistently estimating. Embrace consistently estimating. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. Your estimates will get better over time. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Tracking calories is a skill. It's a skill. And And like any skill, it's just going to improve with practice. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And over time, you're going to develop a much keener eye towards portion sizes. You're going to develop a much stronger sense of how calorie dense some foods are. You'll begin to have what I call caloric awareness. And as you do this, your confidence in your estimates will increase. I'm at a point where I'm very comfortable estimating calories because I've been doing it for years. I'm pretty good at ballparking it. So when you're unsure, just take your best guess. Seriously, just take your best guess, log it, and then just move on. The act of estimating will keep you engaged in the process, which is so important because I want to keep you conscious and aware to the act of eating. And that is what matters the most. Remember this, consistency beats perfection every time. Consistency beats perfection every time. All right, let's move to our next question that was answered in the program. Now, but before I do that, if you have been considering joining the Guild of Champions, I'm getting ready to open the doors soon. And the best way to do that is to make sure you are on the waiting list. If you are on the waiting list, I will notify you. You will get first dibs to get into the guild. And you can get on that waiting list by heading on over to theguildofchampions.com. There's also a link in the show notes, and you can put your name on the waiting list. I've already started emailing the wait list. I'm coaching you. I'm giving you thoughts or priming your mind. And then when the doors open, you're welcome to jump right in. Hey, if now's not the right time, no worries. We'll catch you on the next go around. All right. I understand sometimes it's not ready, but for some of you, you're ready. The time is here. Now, next question. I like this one. This is a really important question because it's something so many people feel. So the question is, I feel sad that I have to think about my food so much before eating. It's actually annoying me that I'm in this situation where I need to pay attention to all this stuff every day. It causes me to feel the feelings of, fuck it. How do I move past this feeling? So glad that a person had asked this question so that it could be addressed. Because these feelings are completely normal. Completely normal. And in fact, you're not broken if you feel this way. You're actually experiencing something that's enough to make people quit entirely, though. Like, I'm aware. I felt it. This frustration of like, gosh, I don't want to think about this anymore. I'm so frustrated that I got to do this. This frustration could totally get a person to walk away from their goal. It can totally get a person to abandon the dream of losing all the weight for good. That fuck it feeling, it's all too common. But here's the thing. While the mind might tell you, this means something's wrong, it's not a sign you should give up. That feeling is actually a sign that you're growing. Because what you're feeling is the mind, that fuck it feeling is the mind struggling to let go of an old understanding of the world, an old habit, an old paradigm, an old belief, something. It's struggling to let go of that and accept the new, the present. It's like mental friction. Your brain wants things to be the way they used to be. Because back then it was easy. It was automatic. But when you're trying to lose weight, when you're trying to become a thin, healthy, happy, in shape person, it's going to force you to confront what might be new to you truths. And the discomfort that comes with that is just part of the process. It's part of the process. I want you to think of it like this. It's not any different than if a person was drowning in credit card debt. Let's just imagine this for a second. This person drowning in credit card debt is sitting there thinking, gosh, I hate that I have to monitor my spending. I have to make a budget. I have to constantly say no to everything. I got to say no to all these things that I used to say yes to. All right, I've had to get out of debt. It's a frustrating feeling when you got to live on a budget to fix a busted financial situation. But here's the thing. No matter how frustrating or annoying it feels, there's just no getting around it. If this person drowning in debt wants financial freedom, this person has to face and accept reality. This person has to reduce spending. This person has to track their dollars. This person has to deal with the discomfort of the change. Because if they don't, the problem's just going to get worse. It's just going to get worse. You know, that debt interest is going to compound more than likely. If the person keeps finding themselves in debt, they're just going to pile more debt on top of it. And before they know it, they're just going to be financially obliterated. Financially obliterated. This is exactly the same when it comes to the body. Just like debt, it often doesn't come overnight. The weight did not appear overnight. And the reality is it's not going to disappear overnight. The frustration that many feel on this journey is very real. It's very, very real. But letting those feelings control your action is not going to make them go away. They're going to continue to linger. The fact is, if you let that fuck it feeling win, it just compounds the problem. Just like interest on debt. If nothing changes, then nothing changes. And reality is often a very hard pill to swallow at the beginning of a personal growth journey. And that's, make no mistake about it, that's what this is. But you're not being punished because you have to think about your food. Now, you could tell yourself a story in your head and weave a tale of punishment and then believe it. And remember, what the mind believes to be true is true as far as that mind is concerned. But you're not being punished for having to think about your food. What you're doing is you're dealing with the effect of past actions and influences. You're dealing with cause and effect. You're taking responsibility for solving the problem. You know, you didn't choose every factor that led to you gaining your weight. You didn't. It's not all your fault. I don't even need to know you to know that. It's just not all your fault. There's other factors that you had no control over that affected you, like the environment you grew up in, the habits you were given, how you were taught to emotionally process things, how you were taught to process your own damn emotions. The reality is you didn't get to pick those at first, but you are the one that gets to choose what happens next. You are the one that gets to choose the kind of person you're going to become. So when you're feeling that frustrated feeling, and you will, many times, simply acknowledge it, but do it without judging it. Don't look at feeling this frustrated feeling as good or bad. Just say, I feel frustrated and it sucks. I'm allowed to feel this way. I'm frustrated. I'm still going to keep going, but I'm really frustrated. I'm really having a hard time. Don't attach any meaning to those feelings of, I'm frustrated. Because feeling annoyed doesn't mean you're failing or that it isn't worth it. It just means you're doing something that's really hard. And you can do hard things. And it's not because you're going to do the hard things and they're going to be easy. It's you can do the hard things and they're actually hard. And if you're feeling overwhelmed and frustrated, it could be a sign that you need to back off a little bit, though. It could be you need to ease back. Not quit. That's rarely the answer. But maybe you just need to dial it back a little. Maybe you could lower the bar on a couple of areas of life. Give yourself a little breathing room. Put a little faith in yourself that when you catch your breath, you'll raise the bar again. And you don't need to feel motivated all the time. Some of us, we operate thinking we need to feel motivated, but you don't. What you need to do is just keep going. You need to learn how to keep going when you don't feel like it. That's how change happens. Through persistence. Feel the feelings. Feel your feelings. But don't let them decide for you what you're going to do. You decide what you're going to do. All right, we're going to end with this last question. Again, I just want to remind you, if you've been thinking about joining the guild, head on over to theguildofchampions.com and get your name on the wait list because the doors are about to open. And if you're thinking about joining, now is the time because then they're going to close again. All right. This last question, and again, there's many more questions that came with this program, but this is one of the ones from this last round. Is it okay if I need to force it some days? Sometimes I really just don't want to do any of this, but I do it anyway. I'm worried I'm going too hard. I'm worried maybe I shouldn't. Forcing it is actually okay sometimes. Actually, it's more than okay. Forcing it is a vital part of the process of growth and success here. Forcing it sometimes is where real mental growth happens. Necessity is the mother of innovation. And sometimes you have to be put into a hard situation and decide to turn weight loss into an and to cause you to come up with a new solution. Those moments when you don't feel like doing something, but you do it anyway. You see, when you do that, that's a sign that you're building resilience. That's a sign that you're operating from a place of courage. When you do that, you're strengthening the mental muscles that are going to carry you all the way through to the end. And it's going to keep you going when there's no motivation, because you've got to find a way to keep going when there's no motivation. And part of that skill is acquired by pushing when it's hard sometimes. Because motivation is really, really fickle. I discovered that on my journey. I noticed that weight loss, or that motivation for weight loss, it came and it went. Generally without warning and often suddenly. And I've learned this. I was going to say, you can go learn this lesson the hard way if you just want to, but I'm going to try to give you the lesson now. If you rely on motivation to do things, like if you only do the things you need to do when you're motivated, you're going to find yourself stuck in this endless cycle of starting, stopping. You're just going to get stuck in it, right? If you only do what you need to do when you're feeling motivated, you're not going to make it. You're just not going to make it. Stop trying to lose weight. You're not going to make it. Real transformation happens when you learn to take action without the need to feel motivated. You've got to decouple action from motivation. When motivation shows up, use it. It's awesome. It's great when it's there. But now, hold on. We do need to address something, though. I'm talking about pushing, but there is a difference between the occasional bout of exerting some grit and determination and just moving towards burnout and chronic burnout. Like, there is a difference. So if you're forcing it for just a few days or few weeks, totally normal. Sometimes you just got to push through something for a couple of weeks because it's just new and your brain is resisting it. All right, that's part of the grind that you're just going to have to embrace, where you're stretching outside of your comfort zone into the unknown. And this phase, this pushing through, can be super transformative because it's going to teach you that you're capable of far more than you think you are, way more than you think you are. And that moment of greatness is discovered on the edge of your ability when you exceed it and you're surprised by it. Part of this journey is learning how to know, or learning when to push and when to pull. There's a bit of trial and error in there, which means sometimes you're going to overdo it and sometimes you're going to underdo it. But a lot of you, what happens is you get stuck in this when in doubt, do less. I'm going to advise you to, when in doubt, do a little bit more. So now, your mind, as you do this, might throw up warning signs that like you're overdoing it, even though you're like totally not overdoing it. So, but what you're looking for to know if you're overdoing it or not is if you're forcing it for like months on end. All right. If you're feeling constantly emotionally drained, if you're feeling constantly exhausted, or even really getting resentful towards what you're doing, that's a signal you might need to reassess what you're doing. Because long-term success is not going to come through white knuckling your way through every day getting here. You cannot, do not be successful by white knuckling it. That's not what pushing through it means. All right. You got to find a sustainable rhythm. You're going to have these periods of intensity, and you're going to have periods of recovery. It's natural to have the ebbs and the flows. I talk about this in the On-Ramp program when I teach about Success Mountain and these recommit points. Balance is not about doing less. Balance comes from knowing when to push and when to pull. And so your mind, sometimes you're like, oh, this is too much. You're overdoing it. You need to quit. You're burning out. It's been too much. And it's only been like 2 weeks. Here's the thing. Your brain is going to try to tell you that's wrong. Ironically, though, that's a sign you're on the right path. You see, your mind needs a sense of certainty. Every human has a need for certainty. And this feeling of, I'm overdoing it when it's only been a couple of weeks, often is just your mind signaling that it's uncomfortable because you're changing. And change feels risky to the part of your brain that craves that certainty, that familiarity. C.S. Lewis is one of my favorite quotes. Will often choose a familiar captivity over an unfamiliar freedom. Your brain will be inclined to take the familiarity of emotionally eating rather than just sitting in it to see what happens. But discomfort isn't necessarily a sign of danger. Not exclusively. Discomfort is a signal that something new is happening. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. So here's how to check a couple things. First, you need to know the difference between exhaustion and resistance. Fatigue is heavy, it's draining, it persists. Resistance is like, I don't really want to, but you totally could, right? Resistance comes more from the 2-year-old energy. Fatigue is just something deeper. It's more in your bones. Another way to tell if you're overdoing it is, are you neglecting basic self-care? Not like you're putting it off because you're wanting to watch TV. I mean, you're skipping some basic things like sleep. You're starting to withdraw from people. You might be doing a little too much. You might need to ease up. But the other thing is, you might need to see if you're seeing progress. Right? Sometimes it feels like you're burning out because you're not giving yourself a sense of progress because hey, the scale didn't move, but you got smaller by 2 inches, right? And you're robbing yourself of that, and it causes you to feel burned out because it feels like you're doing all this effort for no return. So force it when you need to, and you're going to need to sometimes. Push through on hard days sometimes because you're going to need to sometimes. But you got to listen to yourself. You got to make your own decisions. If you're hitting a wall that feels like burnout, adjust, pivot. Don't quit. Just lower the bar a little bit. Set your pride aside. Just lower the bar. I don't care what you should be able to do. I only care about what you can do right now. And it's not about, success doesn't come from going hard all the time. It's not what brings you success. Success is going to come from consistency. From consistently moving forward, even when it's hard. Even if you're doing it messy. Even if it's just not working as good as it, could if life were going simple. Be okay with imperfect action. Be okay with doing it uncomfortable. Be okay with this sloppy path forward. Fail your way to success. Stumble your way forward. That is how you win. By stumbling your way all the way to success. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Love having you here. Love talking with you. Hope to see you in the guild. Some of you. Never give up on yourself. You got this. I'll see you next time.